They sense it before you even speak. The shift in your energy, the confidence in your movements, the silent power behind your presence. It disrupts the equilibrium they've grown comfortable with. People aren't reacting to you. They're reacting to the version of themselves they see reflected in your discipline. When you walk into a room with the unshakable composure that semen retention cultivates, it forces others to confront their own weaknesses. They will not hate you because of what you say or do, but because your very existence becomes a silent indictment of their lack of control. Their subconscious recognizes what you've built within yourself, while they remain trapped in cycles of indulgence, distraction, and depletion. Hate does not come without reason. It is a defense mechanism. When you operate with clarity, purpose, and unrelenting drive, you remind others of the potential they've neglected. Your very presence exposes their self-imposed limitations, and instead of elevating themselves, they lash out at what they do not understand. Retention doesn't just increase your focus, it amplifies your aura. It alters how people perceive you on a primal level. Some will be drawn to you, sensing an unspoken dominance. Others will feel repelled, threatened by the power they cannot define but instinctively recognize. They will mock you, attempt to diminish your discipline, not because they truly doubt it, but because they fear what it represents. Section 1. Energetic disruption. There is an invisible force that governs social interactions, an unspoken energetic current that determines how people respond to each other. Most move through life unaware of it, operating on autopilot, vibrating at the same low frequency as those around them. But when a man retains his energy, something shifts. His frequency rises, his presence becomes undeniable, and those who exist in a state of depletion can sense it. They may not understand why, but they feel it. A tension in the air, an unspoken disruption. The man who refuses to waste his essence is no longer playing the same game as everyone else. He has stepped outside the cycle of self-destruction, and that makes people uneasy. Those who are comfortable in mediocrity will instinctively resist what they cannot comprehend, and nothing is more foreign to them than a man who has mastered himself. Social hierarchies are not just determined by wealth or status. They are deeply rooted in primal instincts, dictated by subconscious signals that most people are blind to. A man who retains walks differently, speaks with a deeper resonance, and holds eye contact in a way that subtly establishes dominance. His posture exudes certainty. His presence demands acknowledgement. He is not loud or boastful, but his energy alone forces people to take him seriously. This is not arrogance. It is the byproduct of real biological changes. When retention fuels the nervous system with undispersed energy, it strengthens everything from testosterone levels to neuromuscular coordination, making his very existence an assertion of authority. And this is what unsettles people. Those who operate from a place of weakness will feel an inexplicable pressure to challenge or reject him, not out of logic, but out of instinct. Because power that is not given but self-generated will always be met with resistance. The need for external validation is the invisible leash that keeps most men tethered to the expectations of others. It dictates their behavior, forces them to conform, and makes them desperate for approval. But retention erases that need. The man who has transmuted his energy no longer seeks permission. He does not need attention, acceptance, or validation to confirm his worth. And that is precisely what breeds resentment. Those who have spent their lives relying on social reinforcement to define their identity cannot comprehend a man who has freed himself from that cycle. His mere presence is a reminder of their own dependence, a reflection of the control they have surrendered. Rather than confronting this reality, they will deflect, criticize, or attempt to bring him back down, because it is easier to mock what they cannot attain than to question their own choices. The world does not hate a retained man for what he does. It hates him for what he represents. A reminder that they too could be more, but have chosen not to be. Section 2. Psychological projection. Most people spend their lives avoiding the truth about themselves. They drown their weaknesses in distractions, numbing themselves with indulgences that keep them from facing the harsh reality of their own lack of control. When you practice semen retention, you break this pattern. You stand as living proof that self-mastery is possible, and that makes people uncomfortable. When they see you, unshaken by urges, untempted by cheap thrills, and fully in control, it forces them to confront the fact that they are not. The mind resists painful truths, so instead of admiration, they lash out, they ridicule, they resent, because accepting your strength means acknowledging their own weakness, and most aren't ready for that. Society thrives on conformity. It whispers the same lie over and over. Everyone does it, so it must be normal. The moment you refuse to follow the script, you disrupt the illusion. Semen retention isn't just about self-discipline. It's about breaking a cycle that has been normalized for generations. When you no longer participate in the indulgence, you expose the truth. People aren't engaging in these habits because they want to, but because they are conditioned to. The moment you step outside that system, you make them question their own choices. And rather than facing that discomfort, many will see you as the problem, the outsider, the anomaly. Because nothing is more dangerous to conformity than someone proving there's another way. Something shifts on a biological level when you retain. Your testosterone rises, your dopamine receptors reset, your mental clarity sharpens. You walk with certainty, think with precision, and move with purpose. This doesn't go unnoticed. Whether consciously or subconsciously, people can sense it. The men who have drained themselves into a passive state may feel threatened by your assertiveness. The ones who rely on emotional instability to manipulate others may find your unshakable frame frustrating. The ones who have lived their lives in mental fog may see your clarity as arrogance. It's not arrogance, it's power, and power that cannot be controlled will always be resented by those who lack it. Section 3. Social conditioning and control. From the moment a man is born, he is fed a script, a set of expectations designed to mold him into something predictable, controllable, and ultimately powerless. Society doesn't want men who think for themselves, who challenge the system, who demand more from life than comfort and convenience. It wants men who are docile, easy to pacify, and kept in a state of perpetual indulgence. That is why semen retention is mocked. Not because it is ineffective, but because it is dangerous to the structures that rely on weak men. When a man retains, he disconnects from the cycle of self-sabotage that keeps him dependent. He stops looking outward for validation and starts generating power from within. And the world is not prepared for men who refuse to be controlled. Most people have never met a man who has truly harnessed his own energy. They are used to passive figures, drained by their indulgences, always seeking external stimulation to fill the void they refuse to confront. But when you retain, you disrupt that balance. You operate outside the spectrum of normal behavior. You carry an intensity that unsettles those who have numbed themselves into submission. Society is designed to keep you within familiar boundaries, ones that limit ambition, discipline, and personal power. When you step outside of those limits, people instinctively resist. Not because they understand why, but because anything that challenges the norm is seen as a threat. They will call it strange, unnecessary, even foolish, not realizing that their discomfort is proof of its power. There is a reason why semen retention is ridiculed in mainstream narratives, why it is dismissed as pseudoscience, why people roll their eyes at the idea of preserving one's vital energy. It is not because the practice lacks merit, but because it disrupts the silent control mechanisms that keep men distracted, weak, and manipulable. Those who mock it are not acting on their own volition. They are repeating what they have been conditioned to believe. They are, unknowingly, defending the system that enslaves them. They will argue for their own limitations, mock the idea of masculine discipline, and attempt to pull others back into the cycle they are unwilling to break. But the truth remains, a retained man is a free man, and nothing is more terrifying to a world built on control than a man who cannot be controlled.